My name is Patsy Fergusson, and I am the editor-in-chief of Fourthwave. We are sponsoring this event, and we have 55,000 followers on Medium. That's where we all publish, so I hope you will look for us there. Um, I have invited Gargi, Unsquashable Girl, to be our special guest this time. She wrote an article that really intrigued me about how religions from all around the world often work to um, oppress women. So we're going to talk about that, and we do expect more people to come. Some people are late, and hopefully they will show up. But before we get started in the conversation, could I ask you, lovely people, to introduce yourselves? My name is Patsy Fergusson, and I am the editor. Sorry about that. Okay.
Hello, my name is Esther Owana Edit. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a writer and an editor for fourthwave.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to meet you both. And Patsy, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. My name is Gargi. I am a lawyer in New York City. I'm also a writer, and I write often on Fourthwave. Love the publication. And I'm also the founder of Unsquashable Girl. You can find it on Instagram. And it simply means a girl who refuses to be squashed. So if you are one of the girls who identify as someone who doesn't want to be squashed, please follow Unsquashable Girl and Fourthwave. I'm delighted to be here to discuss how religion oppresses women, how spirituality is being construed in a way that is not very women friendly. And I'm looking forward to having this discussion.
Me too.
Wonderful. Well, you might notice, Esther, that Gargi and I put where we're calling in from in our name, and I would love you to do that as well, so people watching are aware we're coming from all over the world. And the way we did that was if you go up in the upper right corner of your window, there's three dots, and you can click on that, and then there's a rename a possibility. I'm glad to see Muniba is here as well. Moni, will you introduce yourself? Or first, I guess we better get your video going. And hopefully we'll also get Sangeeta from Italy and Pallavi from India. I did get a couple regrets. Suma isn't here today because she's going to be at a book
Hello,
fair. Hello, we're glad you're
how are
here.
you?
Good. I was just asking Esther, and I'll ask you as well, if you wouldn't mind adding where you're calling in from to your name.
Yeah, to add this in.
You're not able to do it?
Yeah.
For me, I was able to, if I go up in the upper right-hand corner, it says mute, and then it says dot, dot, dot.
Okay.
When I click on the dot, 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 I see rename down at the bottom. And that's what I clicked on in order to rename that I'm calling from San Francisco.
It's just where your name goes, I think.
Yeah, just down where. But yeah, when I click on rename,
I don't know.
if it doesn't work, it's not that important. I just thought it would. Oh, there we go. Very nice. Thank you. Okay. Muniba, would you give us an introduction? Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Muniba Kasi and I am from Pakistan, and I am principal editor of Fourthwave. And nice to meet you, Gargi.
Nice to meet you, Muniba. I've worked with you on so many articles. I love your work and I love what Fourthwave is doing.
I love your work too.
Thank you.
Well, Gargi, why don't we get started talking about your article? So the article, which is listed in the details, that drew my attention was called Try Enlightenment with a touch of, or try Fiesty Enlightenment, or what was it called? Can you recap it for us?
Yes, yes. And the article was really about feisty spirituality, which is enlightenment with a dose of empowerment. Because time and again, in my work as a lawyer in New York City and with my connections with the South Asian community, which I'm very close to, I see that women are using religion and spirituality to accept unthinkable things. And I believe that any spirituality that praises a woman's calm while ignoring her danger is not enlightenment. And if we hold that as the premise, if you read the article on Medium, I'm sure it can be linked in the YouTube notes, in the live stream notes, you will see that I give examples of a new friend I met at a spiritual retreat, and an old friend I knew from like 6th grade, and how they're using the concept of accepting the present moment as it is, as submission instead of using the power in that present moment to not accept things that are unthinkable, that can be easily changed. And I was very curious as to why people are doing that. So I started to delve into the different religions to try to see what the foundation of that could even be. Because that one statement, accept the present moment as is, shouldn't make women suddenly more passive than they are. And anyway, so what I found is no major spiritual or religious tradition actually requires women to endure abuse, despite how often the teachings are distorted. And the key point there is caring about personal safety is not ego, and leaving harm is not failure. Across traditions, across religions, dignity comes first.
Wonderful. I loved your little story. You told about a woman who was, you were at a retreat, and this woman had giant spiders in her room. And rather than tell the management that my room was infested with spiders, she was like, I'm going to accept the universe as it is. And you found that objectively ridiculous. So,
I found that so crazy because she was taking the teaching to mean that, unthinkable things are okay, and it was so easily solvable. And she almost felt bad about complaining about spiders in her room. And she, at one point, she said, "Is this how American hospitality is?" And I was like, "No." Like, I've traveled all over the world. I live in America now, and this is not American hospitality to allow big spiders to roam around your bed and call that a clean room. And it was amazing to me how she was saying, well, if I complain about it, because as you know, if you go to a hotel in any country or live in an Airbnb and it's dirty, you can complain and they will come clean it. They're supposed to. I've done it multiple times. But how she was saying it is, if she complains, then that will spoil this mood that she has of accepting everything as is. And I'm like, this is where spirituality starts to go the wrong way, because this is easily fixable. And I can still remember, I actually, right after that conversation, Patsy, had a big spider show up just outside my door. Now, I must say that we were at an outdoor retreat, so it had like little cabins, but it had a big spider. And I was like, I can't accept, like, how am I going to walk through the door? Because it might jump at me. I am going to accept the present moment and accept the danger in the present moment. And call someone to help, which I did, and people showed up and helped me, and it was done. And it was amazing to me how this friend then turned around and like sent me a long text, which is actually what got me to write this article, saying, Gargi, you say you're spiritual, but you complained about the spider. And I'm like, I'm going to complain about every spider, every man abusing me, every woman screaming at me inappropriately. I am going to complain, and I'm going to call that feisty spirituality.
I like it. I like it. I personally, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm very interested in all the religions of the world. I was raised a Catholic, but not very strictly so. Went to the catechism, which is the school where you learn about the religion until I was 9 or 10. And then we stopped going to church and we stopped going to school for, I don't really know why, but my parents didn't make us go anymore. But I remember that I was perplexed in Christianity and Catholicism by the Holy Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And I was like, what? Where's the mother? And why is she a ghost? And I was put off by that. And there were a number of questions that I asked in catechism that the nuns did not adequately answer for me. So, for example, they say Jesus died for our sins. And I was like, how does that mathematically work? I don't understand. Why did he need to die? And how does that make up for us sinning? And also later when I grew, so that still doesn't make sense to me. So I'm no longer a Catholic. I would describe myself as an agnostic, meaning I believe there's something beyond human awareness, but I don't really know what it is. I don't know the nature of God. It's a mystery. And the book that I find most helpful for me is the Tao Te Ching. I like the way it poses questions and answers and advice. How about you, Mooney and Iwana? Can you tell us a little bit about your religious background and how I didn't really talk about women that much, but if you have something to say about how it affects women, I'd love to hear
it. My religious background, I grew up Christian and not Catholic, more of a Protestant church. So yeah. And it's only recently, well, maybe not recently, but it's majorly recently that I began to question a lot of the teachings. And while I'm still Christian, because I do believe in God, it's like it's just a lot of things I just do not agree with. And when I try to speak to like my friends who are also in the church about it, it's like when you start questioning the Bible, it's like, oh, you don't like, you're basically not supposed to question the Bible according to them, according to most people in the faith. You're not supposed to question anything about God. And I'm such a critical thinker. I question everything. So it's hard for me to just accept everything as it is. And I've been reading like a lot of stories because people say this thing of reading the Bible back to back, like to really see what it says. And I've read it, but I cannot really remember. I was quite young. I'm reading some stories. I just cannot understand why that was acceptable. I recently read about Lot's daughters, who he had some, I don't even know the story. He had some strangers come into his home. And then I can't remember the details clearly, but basically he had some strangers come into his home. And the villagers came to request for those strangers because they are not supposed to be in his home for some reason. And instead of giving up the strangers, those strange men that were in his home, to be raped, he decided to give up his daughters instead to be raped for some reason. And also, the Bible also, in the Old Testament, approves of slavery and how like slave and master relationship and all of that. And there were rules. And apparently male slaves could be like their tenants like requirements for how they should be freed. But female slaves are not supposed to be freed for some reason. Like you're basically a slave forever if you're a woman. I don't know why. And also like women are literally property because if like a male slave, he gets bought by his master and maybe he's given a wife and this wife that is given gets as children for him. When he's to be freed, he's not allowed to take those children and his wife. The children and his wife and the wife belong to the master. I don't know why. Like it's just a lot of stories, and it's like, and also like reading even in the New Testament, because they'll say, oh, those things are in the Old Testament, it does not apply anymore. Even in the New Testament, reading that women are not allowed to speak in church. And it's like, and you do see it like being carried out today. We do have a lot of female pastors. In my church, there's no any female pastor. And women are also not allowed to sit in front. I don't know if they do that in your church. But women are not allowed to sit in the front of the church. I found that in a very rude way. Went to church early and I wanted to sit at the front. And me and my brothers wanted to sit at the front. And I was basically sent back. And they were allowed to sit in the front. And I found it very embarrassing because there are people in the church. So it's very, very embarrassing. So yeah, I grew up Christian, and I do find that even Christianity is like it's a religion that's made for men. And I was having an argument with a friend recently, and I was saying, yeah, I don't know how I came to a conclusion that God is spirit and is mother and it can be father too. But apparently is God the Father, and there's nothing we can do about it. Even though the Bible does refer to him as mother and as, but apparently is God the Father. So he's a man. So I don't know. That's what I have to say.
Well, I want to hear from Mooney too, but I just want to interject. When I went to college, I took a class on religion of the Old Testament. I was curious. I hadn't read the Bible very closely, and I was shocked at that age to understand that the Bible was written by dozens of different people over hundreds of years. And the first New Testament part was written 300 years after Jesus died. So I can just imagine if someone sat down today and tried to tell the story of a person who lived in 1800 or 1700 something, they'd probably get some details wrong. And also each, to me, it's confusing. You open the Bible and it tells a story, then it tells it again, then it tells it again, slightly different. And what I learned in that class is different editors come in, they go, no, it should be like this, but let's not erase that because it's holy. Let's just write it again. And, they were all men. There were no women writing. And
Could understand that about the Bible because a lot of people take it as everything in it is basically like from the mouth of God. So they basically take it as law. Like even though it's a combination of stories, like it's stories of people who lived during those times. People take it as, oh, for example, the book of Solomon and Solomon having all these many wives. They're like, yeah, it means men can have as many wives as they want. Instead of just seeing as it, and they don't look at the ending, like it did not end very well. Seeing it as, oh, this is the story of Solomon the king documented in the Bible. They look at it as, oh, it's in the Bible, so it must be approved by God.
I thought that. And when I showed up in a college class, I was like, what? The Bible wasn't written by God. I was kind of embarrassed that I was so dumb because, the scholars who study it know who wrote it and when. And anyway, that was a kind of a dumb question, but that was the impression you get in church and in catechism and from other believers, people. So that started and I remember my sister, she was very devout. She was older, so she went longer to catechism in church. And she lost her faith in college. And I said, what happened in college? And she said, well, I just realized there were other people with other faiths. She didn't understand that before. She thought everybody was Christian. Everybody, because that was all she had ever been exposed to till she met people, different people, read different books. And then she said, okay, well, it's not likely that we are the only ones who know the answer. No, everybody else is wrong. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, Maniba, I'm sorry I haven't given you a chance to talk. I'm so chatty. Tell us about your religion.
Okay, I am Muslim and I love my religion, but I also have many questions like others. But when I was kid and I first time I remember that when I asked my mother that who wrote Quran, and she said Allah, and I was like, how can Allah write Quran? And she was, no, don't ask more questions. You are not supposed to ask any questions. And that was that day was, I think, last day when I asked any question that I was like. So, but my husband is like, he like to read and read more, and he told many things about it, that there are many loopholes or whatever I can say, but I was raised with belief, prayers and community, but also with rules that fall more heavily on women than on men. So this thing very, very like it make me question more, like, what are we women in this society or in this world when rules are only applied to women? If it is like in religion or anything, let's take only parda, like that. In Quran they said women have to hide ourselves, but also men should like lower their eyes, but they never say this. They only give permission to women to go and do all, like cover yourself and things like that. I hope I find more answers. Like Patsy said, it is not Quran, but many things are written very, very, like there are many books, and it is written many years ago, and I think there are things that are changed or something. Like men are, why in every religion man is like superpower? Like how can this be true?
Some things have
So
been lost in translation, I feel. Like, it's just so amazing to hear from all of you about your religions. If you don't mind, Patsy, I'd like to add something.
Please
And
do.
and also, I want to invite anyone who's watching this live stream to, why don't you comment below on things that you found in the religion that actually support women? Because I think that's the work we need to do. We need to look at the different religions and different spirituality, and instead of shift our focus from things that are holding us down, the rules, the regulations that have not been written by God, as is clear in this conversation itself, then why don't you comment on like things you found in the religion that actually empower women? And I can start with just a few things that I researched, and please add to these. For example, I found across religions, women are told that suffering quietly is spiritual. But like we discussed, that endurance does not equal enlightenment. When you read the source texts, some of which was named here by Muniba and Patsy and Esther, when you read the source text, you find something radically different. Women are repeatedly given moral authority to protect their lives, resist injustice, and walk away from harm. So then my conclusion that I'm trying to make in this talk is what traps women isn't spirituality, it's spiritual distortion. So we want to get away from spiritual distortion. And like I said, I invite all the viewers and the participants to talk about things in the religion that actually support that. So I'm going to give you a few examples. In Hinduism, I grew up Hindu, but I went to Catholic school. Most of the gods, the power, the Shakti, we call it Devi Shakti, they're all women. So how are we stepping away from that? Like Ma Durga, Ma Kali destroys violence. Shakti is not passive. She ends harm. So we should remember that as far as Hinduism is concerned. And there is this core principle in Hinduism which says ahimsa, non-violence, and it applies to oneself first, which means enduring abuse is not spiritual. It is a violation of your dharma, which is your divine right. Then I'm going to switch to Christianity, and please, feel free to add things I've missed. But Christian women were told to turn the other cheek, but Jesus never told victims to stay with abusers. when it was said, love your neighbor as yourself, it requires self-regard. Love your neighbor as yourself, which means you have to love yourself first. Christian love never requires self-destruction. Safety is not sin. That's what my reading of the literature is saying. Then we're going to switch to Islam because we have someone from that religion. Islam is frequently misrepresented as endorsing female endurance of abuse, but I think the opposite is true. And this is the stuff that I found, that Quran emphasizes compassion, justice, dignity in marriage. Abuse violates the Quranic standard of peace and safety. In fact, what I read, it said Muhammad explicitly condemned harming women and allowed divorce when harm existed. The core principle being any marriage that destroys peace is already religiously invalid. So I think we need to find the pieces in every different religion that actually empower women. I have, I think, one more, which is Judaism. Judaism is explicit about women's rights to leave harmful marriage, which is amazing. It says a husband is obligated to protect his wife's physical and emotional well-being. Failure is grounds for separation. And there is a concept of saving life that overrides all religious commandments. So basically, the core principle in Judaism that supports women's rights, it says, if a relationship endangers a woman's life, leaving is a religious obligation. And a lot of the spirituality stuff, the New Age spirituality stuff, is coming from Buddhism. So I want to address that as well. Buddhism is often distorted into just accept the present moment and accept suffering. But Gautam Buddha taught that suffering has causes and those causes can be removed. Leaving harm is a skillful action, and women should not be reduced to suffering and should not be reduced to romanticizing suffering. But I feel like women who suffer feel like, they're better than us. And I want to say, if you leave, you are following your dharmic path, your religious path, your spiritual path. You are following in God's steps, because God never said women must suffer and men must get a free pass, like Muniba was saying. So I hope that resonates, and I want to invite everyone to tell me more. Tell me more what you found in the religions that you come from, that empower women as opposed to taking the power away. So I hope that resonated. And back to you, Patsy.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. That was I'm still kind of processing everything you said. Yeah, I read a book back in college called The World's Religions or something, and by Houston Smith, and I got a similar takeaway that a lot of the ways that people interpret the Bible or preach about the Bible or other religions are incorrect to the original text. So it seems to me that organized religion is used to make money, it's used to gain power, it's used to support the status quo, whereas Jesus questioned the status quo, right? He was a Jew and he said, hey, you guys are doing this wrong. You should be doing it a different way. He came up with a different philosophy, and he actually was even overturning tables. I mean, I don't know the Bible as well as Juana, I'm sure, but I do know a couple of stories. And I know about him going to the money chain outside some temple. There were people selling stuff, and he threw the tables over and said, you shouldn't be selling anything. This isn't about money. So, and I also know I've read that he had there were these women who were in his apostle group, but they somehow get left out of the telling.
Yeah.
And that she's called like a prostitute. Who was his favorite? Mary Magdalene, I believe, right? And she was his favorite in that group. But the men who wrote about it 300 years later said, oh, she was a prostitute. I don't believe there's any evidence of that. They're just demoting her because maybe they were jealous. The men wanted to be the favorite. And yet there were these events that showed he favored her, one being when he rose up from the dead. It was women who saw him first, 3 women who were at his cave where they had put the body, and there are other instances. But I have a stack of books like so tall next to my bed that I intend to read, but I never I never sit down and read them. But I know there's been a lot of scholarship about how Jesus particularly felt about women, and it was very much egalitarian. It was not this thing that's preached about men being the head of the household. A man is like a god, and man is answers to God, and woman answers to man. That is not what Jesus said. It
I
may have.
love that. I love that so much because what your example, like I said, let's talk about examples where the religion actually empowers the feisty spirituality. And I love how you said Jesus gave Mary a seat at the table. He gave her a seat at the table. Why are we now in 2026 fighting for a seat at the table when Jesus gave Mary a seat at the table? Then you said he considered her her favorite. And so even now we look at women with shame if they are in positions of power and taken seriously, because to be considered Jesus' favorite, she must have like contributed something that he found good, interesting, valid. And we are still trying to find our voices. So, stories like these, I think, remind people that what we're dealing with is really spiritual and religious distortion. It's not the truth of what used to be or what was intended.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Hopefully Mooney will be back. Sometimes they have internet outages or other problems in her town. But Uwana, what do you think? I reference you because you mentioned these stories. I know the names, but I don't know the stories. I don't know what happened to the people. So,
Honestly, think I do it that much. I'm just trying to like learn about it. And she said we should focus on the positives. Well, it's really hard to do, and I cannot mention the positives right now, but I know that a lot of things are left to interpretation, and it's been interpreted in a way that favors men, obviously. Just like how she was talking about like enduring suffering, over here it gets interpreted as enduring cheating, enduring abuse in marriage, and all of that. And the Bible makes it very clear that adultery is grounds for divorce. But somehow pastors and other religious leaders do not think so, or they don't think that is valid. So like they keep preaching endurance and pray for him. Like if it's cheating, it's the devil, it's the work of the devil, we have to pray. Obviously, if your husband is cheating on you, you're not praying enough. And I wrote this story on Medium, I think last year. I have an aunt who died from AIDS that she got from her cheating husband, because like when it was cheating on her for years. And the only thing that kept getting praised to her by everybody was that she cannot leave. Like that's her husband, she cannot leave him. It's the work of the devil. Like they're trying to break up her home until she got HIV, and they were still telling her that she can pray away the HIV, so she was not taking her drugs. While the husband who gave it to her was taking his drugs. So she ended up, it turned into AIDS and she passed away. So yeah, I cannot mention any positives, honestly. I would have to make research regarding that. But it's very hard to focus on the positives when there are so many negatives to look at. And also like with writing about Jesus Christ, and Paul the Apostle came after Jesus Christ. Like he walked on the earth like after Jesus Christ had left, and he also had so many things to say against women. He was the one who said that women should not be allowed to speak in the temples. He was the one who said if women do not understand anything about the scriptures, they cannot speak up in the temples. They have to ask their husbands and things like that. So I'm going to have to make research on the positives because I don't know them correctly.
Yeah. But I think the point you're making is that it is, again, an example of distortion. how people try to systematically put women down by taking
Yes.
the example that Patsy gave of, like, Jesus inviting Mary to the table, considering her favorite openly. Remember, openly. So that's important to, like, note. It's not like a secret little tryst that was happening. We still praise Mother Mary. So the fact that, scholars who came after that used what was clearly in front of them, which is happening a lot these days. You see something clearly in front of you, and then someone interprets it a very different way and expects you to believe it.
Yeah.
So I think that's, like, bringing us into the current situation. Like, it's misinterpretation. It's what I call toxic spirituality, where it's designed by men to hold women down.
They do it intentionally to suit the agenda.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well,
Well, we're waiting to hear from Muniba, I think.
Okay, I want to add some positive things too, that men like take these things from us. Religion give three most important thing. I think most important things Islam gives to women, but no one is talking about it.
Yeah,
Like education, seeking education is an obligation for every Muslim. Like there is a hadith about it. Every male and female are obligated to seek knowledge. And what is going here on here, like in Afghanistan or places like this, they are not allowing women to go to colleges and girls to schools. Education is not permission, it's a right, and religion gives this right to every Muslim. And very like many women don't know about it. Hazrat Aisha, who was the wife of Prophet, she taught thousands of men and women, and she is the most important narrator of hadith, and not many people know about this. And
I mean, that's wonderful. Actually, I didn't
she
know
was
either.
very intelligent. Yes, she was very intelligent, and Prophet Muhammad always make her to sit in front of her, and he wants to tell her everything, and she was the narrator and most important one. And now men are not allowing them to go and seek knowledge, and this is wrong. And other most important thing is economic independence. It is in Islam that women money are only her, like keep our income entirely our own. This is what they say in religion. A woman can own property, and no one is like telling her this. No one, like whenever she married and someone like husband is not allowing her to earn money, and this is a right. If she wants, she can, and she have to keep her income entirely her own. Like as not like this, like husband is saying, oh, give rent and this and that. It is our own money. Like it is our own choice, and this is very beautiful thing, I think. And whether third very important thing, that marriage and marrying someone, if women said no, I can't marry this man, I don't want to marry this man, no one can force her. It is forbidden in Islam, but people are doing this. They are making women married like father is saying tomorrow is your marriage and like this tomorrow is your wedding, and go and marry someone. So these are like most important things, like I think, and religion is giving us, and no one is telling this thing to. In Islam, like if women said that you can't remarry, like till I am alive, she can do this, she can do this, and if he did, this is like sin. Hazrat Muhammad signed like some kind of mm, what can I say, that when Hazrat Muhammad daughter was marrying someone, he forbidden him that he can marry anyone till his daughter is alive, and this was choice of Fatima, his daughter, and he didn't marry. He was only like only wife. So like things like this, and no one is talking about it.
Yeah, I'm very impressed that, Islam is so misunderstood, but you are like really clarifying and saying that there are so many tenets in the religion itself that support a woman's financial independence, a woman's choice to marry, a woman's choice to keep all her income for herself. And I'm repeating this because this I keep encountering in my work, where South Asian women, let's just say, like a lot of South Asian women kind of like hand over the keys of the kingdom to their husbands, thinking that is the spiritual duty. When you are clearly pointing out that Islam allows women to earn, to choose who they marry, to leave if they want to give them rights that have been taken away again by a distorted version of religion instead of like the version that came from the gods. So I think the examples you gave are just amazing, and I wish more people would talk about it, would write about it, and comment on it to say that all these rules, because I keep encountering this in my work, where women think an idea of being a good girl means passivity, means
Yeah.
accepting whatever their families are saying or their husband is saying. And I'm like, well, you need to make a decision between who is the highest authority in your life. Because if you say God is the highest authority, and God allows you to live a free life, to save your soul, to, earn your own money, to, marry who you choose, then why? And like God gives importance to women, as is clear from Patsy's story and from yours. Then you're saying you rather would have an allegiance to family members or men who are giving you rules that are different from God's rules. So I think we need to like really dial into like how religion allows women's freedom, and it was never meant to oppress women. So I love your stories, Muniba.
Thank you.
And I have to say, like, it's so interesting that is pointed out, like women allowed to say no, because in Nigeria here we have the south, the west, the east, and the northern part of the country is majorly Muslim, majorly Islam, and that's the part of the country where forced marriage, child marriage, and all of these things are justified based on the religion that they practice. Because they also have different law. We have they use Sharia law in that part of the country, that's in the northern part, because they're majorly Muslims. So they use the religion to justify child marriages, forced marriages. Basically, the oppression of women is justified by their so-called religion. Like, if somebody from the north comes over to the west and is doing something that, like, maybe getting married to an underage, you cannot really question them, because it's been said that you're questioning the religion. Like, I had not a neighbor, but just like in my streets here, I think that was last upper year, this 14 years old girl was giving out in marriage to this very older man, this Alaji, and they were Muslim, so like nobody could really do anything. Also, we have child rights acts that basically says that child marriage is illegal, and obviously child marriage is always, the victims are always women, always girls. But in the north, this law is basically void, even though we're one country. The law is basically void in the north because they are Muslims. And according to them, their religion allows them to marry children. because I think that was in Somalia, maybe towards the end of last year, where they tried to ban child marriage, and we had men crying on the internet, going out for protests, saying that their religion allows them to marry children, because apparently the prophet married Aisha when she was maybe 9 or 6 years old, I don't know, and he said the girls mature at a different rate. I don't know. But because of their protests and their cries, the law was basically scrapped based on religion. So it's very interesting to hear that the religion allows the woman to say no to all of these things. Just recently, that was maybe December last year, we had like a mass marriage in the northern part of the country because they experienced a lot of insecurity. So we have a lot of orphans in that part of the country. We had 100 orphan girls, not women, girls. They had like a mass marriage. So the government was looking for a way to empower these girls. And the only way they could think of was to give them out in marriage, not to send them to schools, not to maybe allow them learn a trade or something, learn a skill, was to give them out in marriage. And you cannot really question these things because it's allowed by their religion. So I find it very interesting that she's saying that the religion allows women to say no. Because like all over the world, where like it's mainly Islam is practiced, it's like they do not look at those parts. And recently, I don't know if you heard Afghanistan. Yeah, that's where they have this Taliban. They signed sex slavery into law. So apart from the fact that women cannot go to schools, they cannot be used as sex slaves. So it's just a lot. It's just a lot of oppression for women in the name of religion.
That's horrible to hear. And I think that idea that we cannot challenge anything that someone says is their religion needs to go. We need to be able to challenge because in the first place, they might be interpreting it wrong and are in a lot of cases. But even beyond that, and I'm kind of afraid to say it, but the people who wrote the book are not necessarily reliable. God didn't write any of these books. It was human men saying, God spoke to me, or I heard this story about Jesus 300 years ago doing such and so. And this guy, Paul, who was very much responsible for spreading Christianity around and who wrote a lot of the Bible, was a terrible misogynist. Jesus was not.
Yeah.
But he was, and he didn't, Jesus didn't write the Bible. God didn't write the Bible. These old men said, oh, I know what happened. I'm going to write the Bible. And then another old guy and another old guy. And also, I want Muniba to speak to it, but I don't think Muhammad's wife was a child. But what I read about his life was that he married late in life. He married an older woman who had a lot of money and who supported him in his pursuit of
Yes,
creating
she
a new
was.
religion.
And it was
Oh, what?
love marriage.
And she was
Like,
older, right? She was older than he
yes,
was.
and yes, she was very older than her. Like she was in her 40s and he was like in his
Oh,
20s.
Well, this is such a
And
critical piece of tweetable moment that you are allowed to fall in love and marry the man you like. And
and she said to her that marry me, and he said, okay, I'm going to marry you. Like it was like some kind of love marriage, and no one is allowing it. No, and when they said that, oh, bride is like 3 days. My husband is like 1 year younger than me. But whenever someone finds out about this, and they are like, "What?
um,
how can he
Over
marry you? You are so
I'm
old.
sorry.
And I'm like, oh my God, very old. So things like that needs to change.
I think we need to speak about it
But
more,
That's
and because how do we advance the conversation? We can advance. We don't advance the conversation by talking about the atrocities and how people are distorting the religion. We advance the
yeah.
conversation by rewriting the story, by reminding people that actually that was not the original intention, or the writers were not good people. Like things that, the examples that Muniba brought up really enlightened me so much about Islam, which is so misunderstood. And then, that's what I'm saying. Like, we rewrite the conversation by reminding people that actually the rule that you're speaking about is made by a man who was a misogynist, or by society because they wanted to put women down, not by the gods themselves, not by the original authority. And I think that, like Maniba, you're saying, like we should talk about it more, we should write about it more. That's why I keep inviting people, anyone who's watching this, please tell us more sources from your religion which empowers women. Do that research. Instead of telling us your sob story or how you're being misused or mishandled, tell us in this chat, in this YouTube, in Medium and Fourth Wave. I'm sure they'll accept it if you write a story about how your religion or your belief of spirituality empowers women. So we start to turn the wave as opposed to give voices to the violence, give voices to the people who are using religion to mishandle not just women but also children, like Esther was talking about, like with child marriages. So it enrages me, and that's why I say let's use it for good with feisty spirituality.
I like that
Like
idea.
Google the age of, like, if you even Google how old was Aisha when she married Muhammad, Google's co-pilot just tells you she was 9 years old, because that's the general knowledge. That's the general knowledge. Like yesterday, video went viral of this guy. He should be in like in his 20s or maybe 30s. He was getting married to this girl who was not even up to 10 years old. She was literally a child. Like she was visibly a child. And anytime you try to question these things, they'll always say Muhammad married his wife when she was 9 years old. And that's what Google says too. So I'm surprised to hear that she was older.
We need to write to Google. That's the thing. You can't, the internet, especially now with AI, it's untrustworthy. It doesn't, I mean, if you go to the history book written by an authority, you'll find the truth, but not necessarily by Googling. Because I read that also, and Muniba knows.
I'm actually getting that from the Quran, because I have Muslim friends, and this is always a bone of contention.
Where can we learn this, Muniba? So Esther can tell her friends where to find it in the Quran, or is it even mentioned there? I mean, I don't think the Quran says
No,
Muhammad married a child. I mean, it certainly doesn't
no,
say that, but it probably doesn't say
no,
he
it
married an
doesn't.
older woman either. That's what historians tell us who have, I mean, he's
Yes,
the
that's what
only
the story.
person who lived. He's the only founder of a religion, except for the Mormon guy, who lived
But
in modern times, who lived in 600, and we can trace and we can find records, right?
yes, but I want to add this. If someone want to read about the Quran, religion, please read Quran with translation. There are many things like there is one uh, ayat that said that God will forgive his rights, like he will forgive you if you don't pray, if he will forgive you if you don't do this or that, but he will never forgive you if you hurt another human being. This is big thing, and men are hurting women's in on daily basis the name of religion. Like
Yeah.
it is clearly stated that God will forgive his rights, but he will never forgive the right, like if you hurt the rights or if you hurt other being, human being. So like this is big thing if someone wants to like tell someone about this, that if God is not forgiving you, till that person forgive you. So I think this is very big thing. If someone is beating his wife, or he is like doing bad things to anyone, God will never forgive you. He, till
It's
that
this
person will forgive you, and that person is never forgiving you. So
same thing in Christianity. Yeah, told that you cannot pray. Like if you are praying to God when you have, I want to say beef, like when you have unsolved issues with another person, your prayers are not going to be answered. Like if you are actively hurting somebody is not happy with you and you're coming to pray to God, your prayers are not going to be answered. You have to first of all go to the person and ask for forgiveness before you come back to pray.
So
Well,
across religions, we are hearing the same message. If you really think about it, like across religions, we are hearing that any teaching that requires a woman to shrink, to silence herself, or risk her life to be considered spiritual or religious is no longer wisdom. And dare I say, it's actually control.
And it's the
definitely.
way people can choose what part of the scriptures we have a big thing here in Nigeria because I go to a church where we do not cover our hair. And according to the book of Deuteronomy, women are supposed to cover their hair. You're not supposed to wear clothes that belong to men. But the book of Deuteronomy also says that you're not supposed to wear clothes of mixed fabric. You can also combine lining and wool. And nobody's looking at that. Nobody's looking at that. But they
Mhm.
only pick the ones that come to them. They're policies women to say that, oh, the Bible says this. But I don't
Yeah,
look at the other parts because
that's a very good point.
so they wear trousers, you're not supposed to wear these. You're supposed to cover your hair and all of that. But I don't look at the other parts.
But I'm still stuck on what you said about Google returning that result, and that's terrible.
Yeah,
And
like
I,
I scrolled far and that's what it says.
it's,
Like I
did you?
always have a lot of Muslim friends, and it's always a bone of contention because they also say that he did not marry her when she was 9 years old. Because I guess that they preach that in the mosque. But everywhere it even says six. Some places it even says 6 years old.
In
So like
fact,
it's very we don't know what the truth is at this point.
well, we do know he married a woman who was older than him, who was in his 40s. We know that. Historians who investigate all the documents tell us that. So what Google's returning is something that I don't know how it got in there, but Google can make mistakes, and this is a
So,
terrible one if it's being used to justify child marriage.
yes,
This
yes, it
so that
is. Like it is written in many things, like she is 6 or 8, sometimes 13 or 14, sometimes 16, and they
not
never know the right answer.
I'm going to look into that, and I like Gargi's approach of let's tell the positive things instead of focus on the negative, because people want to read those things, right? And this is a positive thing that Muhammad married an older woman. Um,
And love
and
marriage was allowed. I mean,
I
I'm happy to
loved
write this
her.
piece with
And
your
yes,
help, Muniba, because three things stood out to me. One, he married an older woman, which is looked down on in 2026. People, question, why is your husband like 1 year younger than you? Second, there was permission for the woman to ask to marry him, which is what you said, which is amazing that she could ask him, would you marry me? And then three, that it was a love marriage. It was not forced. It was not like this is your husband, you must marry him to save your family's honor, which is what is happening in reality in a lot of South Asian countries. So I think just this one story overturns, like
And
Patsy was saying,
also,
all kinds
also,
of misunderstandings.
I would love to read that story, Gargi, and also include the financial independence, because Muhammad came out. What I read was he was the first to say that upon divorce, a woman can have some property, some money, and you're saying even before she can have her own economy, her separate financial resources. And I have to wonder if that's because his wife was wealthy. I mean, not not to be disrespectful, but I read that he was also older. He hadn't really found his path. He tried a few different things, like he was oh, I'm getting him mixed up with Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith founded the Mormons, and he also, I don't think he married a rich woman, but he also late in life became a prophet after trying these other things. And I believe that's true of Muhammad, but I'm getting mixed up. So I won't go on. I see we've come up upon our hour. It seems like we could talk about this more and more, and we will come back another time on religion. But for next week, Suma Narayan, our poetry editor at Fourth Wave, is going to host, and she's going to talk about how women are told to grin and bear it and to suppress their anger. And she wrote a story about that recently, which I will link in the details when I make the announcement on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to that. She didn't come today because she was at a book fair. She just published a book, which she workshopped on Medium. I really enjoyed reading the chapters. She put up a chapter at a time. It was a very exciting book. There was kidnapping and all kinds of things. But anyway, I look forward to coming back next week. And I know Esther and Mooney and I will be here, and you're invited to come back too if you wish. And we'll have a rotating cast of guests going forward. So thank
And
you.
Gargi, I'm going to do promotional video. Can I add your face and all?
Yes, no, absolutely. And I just wanted to say a quick minute. Thank you for having me. This discussion opened my eyes to how, if any teaching across different religions requires a woman to shrink, silence herself, or risk her life to be considered spiritual, it is no longer wisdom. And I think what we discovered, just to recap for a quick second, is across Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, the message is consistent when you read deeply. And the message is women are not meant to disappear to prove holiness. True spirituality expands life. It does not cage it. So I hope you remember that. And yes, you are, welcome to use any material that helps, again, advance the conversation. I welcome people to comment. And thank you, Fourth Wave, for having me.